September 11th, 2001, nearly 3,000 people were killed. 4 plane crashes throughout the country. Obviously, the worst day in American history, right? No, not if you are a swamp-dwelling, Trump-hating Republican like George Will. He will tell you that January 6th, when one person was killed, just one person, an unarmed Trump supporter, was killed by police, and some glass was broken and some bad things happened and people are being punished. That is on par with 9/11. This is what they are telling themselves and us.
I would like to see January 6th is burned into the American mind as firmly as 9/11, because it was that scale of shock to the system.
Scale? Wow. This is Trump derangement syndrome, everybody. This is the result, okay? He hates Trump. I'm going to show you how and why in a moment. But more observations from George Will.
We have something new in American history, that is a political party defined by the terror it feels for its own voters. That's the Republican Party right now. Every elected official is frightened of his voters, therefore doesn't respect his voters, doesn't like his voters, and is afraid that a vote for this will be seen as an insult to the 45th president.
Look, we like President Trump and the voters, yeah. What's wrong with the system where the voters are calling the shots, where the people are calling the shots? That's actually okay with us. Not, though, if you spent your entire life in the swamp like George Will. All right, back to the animus, yeah. George Will's been around for a long time, but never be fooled by somebody who is a beautiful speaker and writer. Because that doesn't mean they're actually any better than anybody. And you know who saw through this guy very early on? Our favorite.
Well, George is a major loser. You know, he's a dour guy, and nobody watches him. Very few people listen to him. It's over for him, and I never want to support you.
These real geniuses like George Will with the little glasses, take away the glasses, he looks like a dumb guy, I'm telling you.
I think he's got you there, George, huh? But George, he brought it on himself. And making this comparison, huh? January 6th, as bad as September 11th. It is a ludicrous comparison, but this is the merger that's taken hold with Republicans and, of course, Democrats.
They know what this report would say, and it would be a damning report about not only what happened, but what was behind what happened, and they can't afford that.
Talking about the commission they want to set up to investigate January 6th, how does he know what it would say ahead of time? He's not in Congress. He has no official position right now. Maybe because it's rigged, they're going to get the results that they want out of that probe. He said something else very interesting.
This is a case, straight up, that if that report gets issued, there's going to be a whole group of both independent voters and what I would call soft Republicans who are going to be terrified by a party dominated by Trump and the likings. And I think George is absolutely right, which is we've never had a party, a major party in a country that is scared of a minority of its voters and frightened. Rather than leading them, they're being led by them.
Well, the word isn't frightened, of course, but what's wrong with that? What's wrong with leadership that responds to the will of the people? Donald Trump recognized the value of the people, what the people had to say. That's why we like him, and that's why he likes us. Isn't that terrific? Instead of delegating it all to these weirdos in the swamp who are out for themselves and not for us, it makes perfect sense. By the way, Donald Trump, a fierce supporter of Israel. What happened last week in the Middle East would never have happened if he were president. And what happened in America last week would not have happened if Donald Trump were president. You saw this anti-Jewish violence on the streets of New York, and nobody seemed to give a damn. I mean, nobody in the media. If they covered it, they politely called it clashes between groups. No, this is anti-Semitism. Pure anti-Semitism. And what did the Sunday shows do yesterday? Not a word of it on the Meet the Press or Stephanopoulos. Not a word about this. Instead, they focused on the threat from the right.
When I was looking at social media, you had put this picture here saying that Jovi Val was coming to speak at one of your rallies here. And then this is him, Jovi Val, with a racist, and I mean, this is a Nazi hand gesture. And then he posted here get in, we're hunting Juden. So he's talking about Jews. And that's him at your platform. Do you think that's someone who's a white supremacist?
So they reran this yesterday. They tracked down some guy who's running for dog catcher in rural Georgia who has a checkered past. This is who they're elevating. The guy who wants to be dog catcher in rural Georgia, trying to say that he represents a force in American politics, that this guy is what January 6th was all about. It's nonsense, of course. It's total nonsense. I think they have Trump derangement syndrome so bad, though, they don't even realize that. They're starting to believe their own nonsense. Also, take a look at this. It's quite obvious. This was bound to happen. A year ago, Black Lives Matter, the summer of, all those riots and people saying it was beautiful to stand up and give the middle finger to cops. Well, what's the result? Increased violence across the board against cops, against people of color, white people. It's happening, and it's ugly.
As the nation's chronic epidemic of gun violence continues, the young are not being spared. At least 120 children age 11 and under have been killed in gun violence, not including suicides so far this year. 281 wounded. Nearly 500 youth ages 12 to 17 killed. Over 1,100 wounded. Gun violence deaths surging in the last 3 years, spiking 30% when comparing 2020 to 2018.
While we're all justifiably focused on the pandemic, there was an incredible surge in gun violence last year, and it's starting to feel like a challenging summer ahead, guys.
It certainly does, Pierre. Thank you.
Challenging. Sounds like a horrific summer ahead. Now, what do these people care? Each one of those individuals makes a minimum of $12 million a year, $1 million a month. You think they care about the conditions they helped create last summer, glorifying violence and condemning cops? That's what they helped do. Across the board, our entire culture is so-called racial reckoning and conversation about cops. Look what they have done. Look at the results. You heard the reporter talk about shootings through the roof. This is what has happened as a result of some really ignorant people and the media coverage. The media coverage has brought this on. And for now, we're going to have to deal with it. I'll be right back.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.